NVIDIA is starting off the year with some new GPUs, the 4070 Super, the 4070 Ti Super, and the 4080 Super. The first to be released is the 4070 Super, which is now available, and is what we have sitting in my PC over here. This is the H6 Flow. You can see this case if you want to check it out in this video up here in the corner. The 4070 Ti Super will come out on January 24th, and the 4080 Super on January 31st. But since we got our hands on the 4070 Super, specifically this is the PNY Verdo overclocked version, we're going to be checking it out and see how it performs compared to the base 4070, also from PNY, and the 4070 Ti that I've been using in this computer for quite a while. And TLDR, I mean, the video card's been out for a little bit, so you probably already know some of the specs and performance, and it basically hits right where you would expect, right in between those two cards, but let's dive in and check it out. Hey everyone, I'm Jordan with 9 to 5 Toys. First off, let's take a look at the specs of the 4070 Super. This version is the overclocked from PNY with 7,168 CUDA cores, a clock speed of 1,980 with a boost speed of 2,490. It has 12 gigabytes of GDDR6 RAM, it has a speed of 21 gigabits per second, and a memory bandwidth of 504 gigabytes per second. It's drawing a TDP of 220 watts, although we saw it lower than that in our actual use. It has 3 DisplayPort 1.4a ports and 1 HDMI 2.1 port, requires a 16-pin power input, and is running PCI Express 4.0 by 16. Just like the 4070 Super is on the smaller side and fits really nicely in smaller and medium-sized cases. Here in the H6 Flow, it does look maybe a little bit smaller because we do have this large second chamber here that can house something like a 4070 Ti very well, so I would usually go for something a little bit bigger if, aesthetics is important to you. But if you have a smaller case and a tighter build, the 4070 Super should fit in there pretty well. Looking at the specs, one bummer is that it does require that massive 16-pin power connector, whereas the 4070 takes only a single 8-pin. Granted, having the single 16 connector is better than needing 2 connectors, and it does come with an adapter that will take 2 8-pins and turn it into that single 16-pin, but you have to admit it is more convenient just having a single 8-pin connector. This card does not have any RGB, but if you do want that, PNY has their XLR8 brand, which will of course have a 4070 Super as well, though buyer be warned, I've had a little bit of trouble using the Velocity X software to actually set up the RGB and really control it at all, so a little bit of a caveat there. This one, on the other hand, this 4070 Super from PNY is very clean, looks nice and sharp inside this case. And the 4070 Super is coming in at $600, which was the same launch price as the 4070, so nice to have a little bit more performance there for the same price as the older card. So moving on, let's get right into it with some performance benchmarks. And like we said in the beginning, throughout all my testing, the 4070 Super sits directly in between the 4070 and the 4070 Ti. It does usually tend to kind of punch a little bit higher towards the 4070 Ti than, lower towards the 4070, but that's not always the case. And anytime there are any sort of NVIDIA boosts like DLSS or reflex low latency, we have turned those on to give the best performance possible here. So taking a look at Forza Horizon 5, with their benchmark mode, a lowdown on my graphics settings, we are at 1440p, max everything on graphics. DLSS is on AI Super Res on auto, frame gen is on, and low latency is also turned on. And here are the results. The 4070 was getting 129 FPS, the 4070 Super 148 FPS, and the 4070 Ti 160 FPS. And that performance puts the 4070 Super a little bit closer to the 4070 Ti than the base 4070. And at that same launch price as the 4070, the performance increase with the 4070 Super is noticeable and was a great gaming experience. Next, I took a look at Battlefield 2042. Once again, the graphics were completely maxed out at 1440p, DLSS set to performance, and reflex set to enabled and boost. On the 4070, I was usually getting around 110 FPS, and it would dip to about 100 in heavy action. On the 4070 Super, it was usually around 120 FPS, with dips down to 110 in heavy action, and on the 4070 Ti, usually around 130 FPS, with dips down to 120 in heavy action. So as with Forza Horizon 5 on Battlefield 2042, the Super was sitting right in between the two other cards. And once again, I mean, all these cards at completely maxed out graphics are giving over 100 FPS in Battlefield 2042, which I do think is, something impressive. Of course, getting up to 130 with the Ti is a better experience for gaming, but still anything over 100 I think plays pretty well. And for a look at raw GPU performance, I typically run the Heaven benchmark, and everything scales here pretty much as expected, with the Super being a 26% increase over the 4070, and the Ti being about a 9% increase over the Super. And all of these numbers also correlate with their power draw. If the 4070 Super performs better than the 4070, it's also because it draws more power. And with the Ti, it also draws more power but gives more frames. Taking a look at the power when running the Heaven benchmark, pulling 100% on the GPU, the 4070 was pulling 165 watts, the Super 190 watts, and the Ti was pulling 200 watts. So it's interesting that the Super was closer to the Ti in power consumption, and then also I think in performance in a lot of these things as well. If you are worried about power consumption, or just want to use as little bit as possible, then the 4070 is still performing well and definitely draws less power. But beyond just the raw performance of these GPUs, there's also all of NVIDIA's other little bits and bobs and features that work really well with these graphics cards. NVIDIA Studio, for example, with this green screen-like background removal from cameras, and its an incredible audio reduction and noise removal are two, huge benefits for using these cards. Additionally, AV1 encoding is another benefit with these 40 series cards, and for streamers that will give some better quality and also take less draw when it comes to actual performance. So you get a little bit more performance for your gaming, and it's not going to be pulling as much when you are streaming, but still delivering a little bit better quality. And even beyond that, NVIDIA has been pushing some of their AI kind of content creation stuff as well, with things like NVIDIA Canvas, which is on these 40 series GPUs, which is basically like Microsoft Paint, turned up to the extreme. It takes really small inputs and you can draw little things, and then it turns it into this incredible AI generated landscape. And I'm really blown away every time I open up this app and play around with it. So overall, the 4070 Super is really sitting right where we expected it to, right in between the base 4070 and the Ti, both in performance, in power consumption, but luckily it's coming in at that same $600 price point as the older 4070. Now that still is, quite a bit of money to pay for a graphics card, $600, but it's getting great FPS performance at 1440p in some newer titles at just maximum graphics here. So really, you are getting a great performing card for that price. Now it'll be interesting to see how the 4070 Ti Super and the 4080 Super perform as well. Hopefully we get our hands on those cards so we can try them out as well. Make sure you're subscribed if you want to see how those perform. And if you're interested in seeing how this performs with streaming, I'll be using it over at my sim rig on Wednesday nights playing some Forza Motorsport, usually around 8 p.m. Eastern. So subscribe, hit that bell icon if you want to get notified when we are going live. You can see how that card is performing for me for both playing the game and streaming at the same time. But that's going to do it for this quick look at the 4070 Super from PNY. Let us know what you think about it down in the comments below. And if you're looking for some other videos to watch, I'll link to our review of the H6 Flow, this case over here, as well as our most recent video. And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up so others can find it easier, and consider subscribing. This is Jordan with 9to5 Toys.